You're listening to Careers and Cocktails, career talk with a twist, hosted by expert recruiter Renee Frey. Let's get this party started.
Hey, party people. Welcome to Careers and Cocktails. I am thrilled today to have Amanda Johnson on the show, and she is going to tell us all about herself. So, Amanda, kick it off for us. Give us your elevator pitch.
Well, I call myself a smart mouth seeker, an unapologetic story junkie, and a mindfully messy messenger. So what that looks like in my career is I help people who want to become authors, speakers, and coaches articulate and develop their message and story for pages and stages.
And she helped me with my book, I Hate Mondays. She is brilliant, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But I want to tell you what we're drinking today. So as she drinks out of her coffee cup, Amanda's favorite beverage is a cafe mocha, which can also be called a mochaccino. What it is it can be hot milk, espresso with chocolate, or it could be coffee based where it's basically hot chocolate with coffee. So how do you like your mochas? And cheers. I'm obsessed with coffee mugs.
I love that. Wait, kick ass, repeat. Yes. I need one of those mugs. Yeah. So this is how I drink it. I have a French press. And so I actually switched over because caffeine made me a little too productive, let's say, twitchy. So I switched over to roasted cacao beans. So I put roasted cacao in here with a little bit of coffee, just because I love the taste of coffee, and that's how I make it. I mix it with some coconut almond milk.
Oh, yum. So what portions do you use for our listeners?
Well, for the whole French press, I add like a tablespoon of cacao beans, roasted cacao, and I get them from, what is the name of the company? It'll come to me. And then basically like a teaspoon of coffee, just because the flavor. I add a little squeeze of stevia, and then I add a tablespoon of the coconut almond milk by Calafia.
Awesome. I love it. So how did you get into mochas?
Oh no, how did I get into mochas? That's such a good question. I feel like I've been drinking, people say I've been drinking coffee too long, which is why I'm so short. But I think I don't know who it was who said that, but it stuck. I think I started drinking mochas when I started my business, actually. Like all of the coffee dates, the like, let's go hang out and get to know each other and see if we can refer business and are we good fit for client, coach, I think it was just all the coffee time. And then I wrote most of my website, like my first website, in a coffee shop. So me and coffee and messaging we all hang out together all the time.
I love it. I love it. So Amanda, pretend I'm a kindergartner and explain to me what you do for a living.
Kindergartner. Okay. So I help people write books that will teach lessons and make people feel really good while they're learning the lessons. I also help those people create, like presentations or lessons that they can teach from stages or in front of classrooms or workshops. And this year I'm helping them to build businesses so that they can do what they like to do every day.
I love it. And what was your first job? What was your first paid job?
I was a babysitter.
Okay. Did you enjoy it?
I did. I always loved babies. There's always something, like, it was always my preferred thing. I have two sisters. One is 12 years younger and one is 16 years younger. So they were kind of like my babies because my mom was working. So me and the babies have always hung out. And then I had one kid and was like, that's good.
That's awesome. If you could choose anyone to invite on our party bus, who would it be?
Party bus.
and they
What
have
is
to be
the
living,
purpose? What is the purpose of the party bus?
that we are going to have a ball. We can let loose, dance, drive to whatever destination we want, your favorite coffee shop, to get mochas.
Oh my goodness. Anyone? Okay. Who would I party bus? We know Ursula is pretty fun, but she's
Yeah,
kind of
she
already
is
on our
fun.
bus, right?
She said Ellen, I think she said Ellen DeGeneres. Did she say Ellen?
Yeah.
And then her mommy friends, because she doesn't get to hang out with them as much as she would like.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Ellen sounds like a ball.
Yeah, she would be,
I
and
might
she could
also
kick off
hang
the
out with
dancing.
her. Right, exactly. Oh, Rebel Wilson. I'd hang out with Rebel Wilson.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
What can we celebrate for you this week, Amanda?
Oh my goodness. You know what? I'm getting ready to launch this collaborative project with several of my previous clients for 2020. And so that's all coming together. I'm pretty excited about what's going to happen in 2020.
Cheers.
So celebrate in advance with me.
Cheers. And you are the founder of True to Intention to help others share their story. Walk us through your career journey and what led you to be in the profession you're in today.
Have you ever played pinball?
Yeah. I used to
of
always play pinball. My dad used to own a bar restaurant.
Yeah. So that's kind of how my career has been. I thought I was going to be a journalist coming out of high school because I loved to write. People told me I was great at it. One of my teachers in high school told me that he was looking forward to me going to college and having all of the fluff kicked out of my writing because it was too poetic for him.
Oh, really?
And so I went to be a journalist, and I don't know how I got invited to the honors program because I had barely read 2 books in all of high school, and they gave me 3,000 pages to read the first weekend of this honors program, and I was like, yeah, I don't belong here. I don't know what you guys are doing. And then we had one paper to write every semester, and we had to send it back, and they just tore it to shreds and then rewrite it and then rewrite it and rewrite it and write it until you get it right. So that's actually where I learned how to develop the outlining ability that I use with my clients, because
Right.
I was like, I am not rewriting 20 pages 17 times ever again in my whole life. Not going to happen. So while I was in the honors program, I realized they started asking me questions like, what do you think the author meant with this? I was like, author meant. So I needed to know history because no one had taught me history. So I thought, oh, I need to be a history teacher. I'll be a history teacher. I'll go back and help kids ask big questions before they get to college and their whole world blows up like mine. And got my teaching credential, graduated college. I was pregnant. And so I became like a substitute teacher. And then one of a family friend offered me an online writing instruction job. She knew I was able to write and that I had my teaching credentials. So she's like, you're a perfect fit. So we helped people who wanted to become basic skills. They want to become teachers. They were genius at what they do, but they could not pass the basic skills test for writing. So we were helping them. And really good lesson. Business lesson. We went to the wrong market. That's when I met Ursula in 2006, I think, because we went to start networking with entrepreneurs. And so that was not where her people were, but I ended up building an editing business because people said, well, we don't really want you to teach us how to write well. We just want you to fix what we're writing, because they were having to develop content for blogs and books. And I think Ursula had already written Selling with Intention by then. And yeah, my first commission with her was a workbook. Could you develop the whole workbook in 2 weeks? Because that should have been my first inkling of how life is going to be with Ursula.
Oh, fascinating. I love it.
Sure. Yeah.
And
go ahead.
That's how we met, is through Ursula, because I did Ursula's coaching program, and then she connected me with you. And ironically, I had started writing I Hate Mondays on an airplane on my cell phone in the notepad. And then we'll talk about your brilliance later in the title and all that, but you got everything out of me and kept me in check and got the book done.
Well, and that's what I found was, so I became an editor and people just started to bring all their content to me. And, some people had like you, like a few notes here and there, like the idea was just, and that was what I really enjoyed those times because I could really ask them a bunch of questions before they started writing. But then I would get content that had been written, get this, like hundreds of pages, first of all, over many, many years, sometimes 10 years. So you can imagine how the author's voice has changed and the
Yeah.
author's articulation of the lessons have changed. So there's a lot of repetition, a lot of confusion, lots of rabbit trails. And so I was the person that like hacked it all up, put it back together, got rid of a bunch of it, and then handed it back to them. And that was like basically taking their baby, cutting it up into pieces, reorganizing it, and giving it back to them because they spent so much time and energy. You know how much time you spent on your book. It's like, can you imagine doing that for 10 years and then having someone just reorganize it? You can't argue that it's a better product, but so in 2009, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I really want to help people from the beginning because people are just wasting too much energy and money and stress and time and all those precious resources. So I started working with people from the beginning.
Got
In
it.
2009.
Got it. And then
Yeah.
can you speak to your brand True to Intention? Like what's the meaning behind that, Amanda?
I love my brand name. Do you know how hard it was to get people to agree with my brand name? Because by this time I was like surrounded by experts, branding experts and business experts and sales experts, and they all had an opinion about the name. But I actually heard the name. The market had crashed in 2008, and I had a bunch of contracts out. I was trained as a facilitator for a life skills program for teens. And so I had all these contracts out in big company, like counties, education, like really nice contracts that I was finally going to be earning money, I thought. And then the market crashed and all the contracts went away. And I was like, what in the world? So there's more profanity than that. But it was it was hard. But I remember being at Ursula's event, it was 2009 at her event. And I literally was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I was in this room of entrepreneurs and I literally heard the words, you've been like true to intention. This is what it is. And I'm like, but I don't know what that means. And so I was talking to branding experts and all these people, and they're like, that makes no sense. But then I heard myself say it to a client, an editing client. You said your intention was this, but this part isn't true to this. Oh, right? That's true to intention, getting the message true to intention.
Yeah.
And then at my first retreat, things went totally in a different direction than I thought. And I ended up with a client who was on the floor in tears by the end of the weekend. And then that's when I heard it's not the message, it's the messenger. Like the true to intention is about helping messages stay on track and congruent and maximize impact for audiences and the brand and the bottom line. But it's really mostly, it's like this big plan to help people look at their story, see it more truly, understand it, and heal parts of it that maybe they've never shared before. So true to intention is about, getting back to what we're here to be.
I love it. And it's perfect for what you do. I'm glad that you listen to that little voice. Sometimes people don't. They're just like, they keep pushing it aside, So good for you for being courageous and saying, this is what I want, not what all these other experts were telling you. So are there people that you won't work with, like that don't align to your values, or have you come, or their work, you're like, I'm not touching this with a 10-foot pole?
Yeah. So I've, over time, I don't know if you've figured this out with your business of like, okay, these are all the red flags of the people who I don't work well with.
Mm-hmm.
And there are certain values, there are certain personality traits that like even like Ursula is super fun to work with, but she's like a super high D, right? So I operate with her very differently than like 90% of my clients. So, it's like, it's looking at personality, it's looking at work style and product, because I do know that there are people who obviously come and cross my path, like you, where it's like this, it's more of a how-to. We weren't doing any personal story work or anything in there, right?
Yep.
Like 99% of my clients. So I have those people come through, and as they need me, I help them, but those aren't the ones I pursue. I help them, but the ones that I'm really attracting mostly are the people who are, they want to change the world with a message and have no clue that it's like this divine design to get them to look at their story and heal. So
Sure. So tell me, with that, you work with people that, get really vulnerable in their stories. How do you push them to be more vulnerable, or like, it's got to be a delicate balance on how you're giving them feedback, right? Help me understand that piece.
well, part of it is how I do it. So like the very challenging thing that at my first retreat was that I didn't know it was coming. And then I kind of thought it was like probably not going to happen again. And I was like, oh, I better figure out how to tell people ahead of time. So over the last 10 years, I've figured out different ways of telling people, like, this is what it looks like to work with me, likely, and so I try to give as much of that up front, like as a disclaimer, because I've had people jump in and be like, this is not what I'm like, nope, those aren't the people. So I do a lot of the qualifying out in my copywriting on the website. In my interviews, I talk openly about all of that because it's really important. And when I'm in a workshop, I'm in interesting form, because I'm pretty much like just telling people, throughout the course of this experience, you're going to love me and you're going to hate me, and hopefully you'll love me again at the end, So I tell people ahead of time, and then I put them inside of a safe space. Most of the time I'm working with clients inside of closed Facebook groups for some of the pre-work that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start out at retreat. And so I have very small groups of people come together in retreat style at Mount Hood in Oregon. We rent an Airbnb and we basically hang out together for 7 days. And so building those relationships and the safety of that container over meals and walks, in addition to all of the other work that we're doing, helps to allow people to open up and share the real stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then, you're totally behind the scenes. You helped with my book. Your name is, maybe I mentioned you, I acknowledged you. Yes, I did. However, like, you don't get recognition. So where do you get your satisfaction from in helping all these people, since it's not like in print?
I love the process. I love the joy that I experience on retreat with people is so building that container, seeing people just start to tell the truth, that, having their little 3-year-old show up and throw tantrums and just be like, it's all right, and watching how that just kind of melts them. That's the rewarding part for me, is watching the transformation that happens over time. I had one cohort last year who started, they all worked with me January to December. So we had our first retreat in January, and some of them came in like, gripping, white knuckled, just like so stressed out and not wanting to do any of the work. And at the second retreat, which we did just 3 months later, we're hanging out, and we were talking about, like, we had someone come in who was going to help with another part of the session. And she said, so what'd you guys do for the last few days? And so I said, why don't you show her? And we did. I encouraged them to do some improv and to just show, like, what the journey had been like.
Oh, cool.
Oh my gosh. We laughed until we cried. People were laughing. And then what I had them do was to show, they picked names of everyone in the group. And then they showed the transformation that they saw from one retreat to the next. And it was amazing, having people reflect all of that back to you. Like, this is how you showed up, and we loved you, and look at where you're at now, and we're celebrating you. It changes the level of accountability in getting your message out. It changes the level of of desire, because you start to see, oh, this is what I'm really up to. I'm not just writing a book. I'm changing my life. I'm changing other people's lives. It's pretty exciting.
So moving. So I've heard a lot of people tell me, oh, I need to write a book. For listeners out there who want to write a book and get their story out there, what's a good starting point for them?
In general, I think the first part, I use the butterfly metaphor, right? So the first part is getting really, really clear on what your magic egg is, right? What's your message? What's your core message? Because you may think that you know your message, but it may not be the core message that you're here to share. And so dig a little bit, do some really good reflection work with people who know you. Ask questions. My favorite question was actually born out of a really challenging experience. I had a client who contacted me, and he'd worked with me before, and then he found out that he had cancer. So he got better, went into remission, contacted me again, and then the cancer came back. And he called me and he said, I only have 30 days left, and finishing my book is on the top 3 lists.
Oh,
and I was like,
gosh.
I know. And so that formed a question that I think helps people get to their core really fast. If you had 30 days left, what's the one thing that you would write a book about? Like, what is the thing that you would want to leave your family or your industry or whatever it is that you have been here to impact? That'll help. And then get really clear on who your market is, because the way that you talk to them, the way that you write to them, understanding their psychology, you have to know those things in order to write a book that's really going to impact them.
Right. Great, great, great advice. So what has been your
I hate Mondays.
What? What?
I hate Mondays, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Understanding your target market.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, and then I'll ask you the failure question. So Amanda, so I come to her with my book idea, and she says, oh, we should add a candidate story in here. And I'm like, oh my God, you're brilliant, because then it's actually digestible and entertaining to read. Because I thought, look, telling people, helping them how to look for a job is the most boring shit you can think of, right? Write your resume. Did you do that? It's boring. And I wanted to make it really fun, because that's who I am. And so it was her suggestion to get the candidate story in, which I was like, perfect. This is perfect. And then I'll never forget, we were talking about, you're like, we have to come up with the title. We have to come up with the title. And I'm like, totally like deadpan. And you somehow asked me questions. And then I told her whatever question it was. And I said, oh, I used to work at Target Corporation, and I used to joke. At that time, it was professional dress for work attire. And I would joke that I'm going to wear a t-shirt that says, I hate Mondays, under my blazer, and I'm going to flash people. And then you're like, that's the title, I hate Mondays. And I'm like, oh my God. And you're like, you came up with it. I'm like, but you got it out of me. Like, why? I don't know how we even started talking. It was meant to be. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Be careful language. That's the goal.
Exactly.
I have a client right now who's writing a book called Crush Your Ex, and you should hear the stuff that she has heard from people about that title, because it's one of those, like, it speaks directly to her market, and no one else is going to pick up that book. But
Right.
it'll sell, because that's exactly what they want to.
Right. Right, exactly. So Amanda, tell us about your biggest failure and how you overcame it.
Biggest failure. I think that my biggest failure was I had a team that I was working with. I talk about this in my book, and I was running, like, my business was in acceleration, fast growth mode, and I was really enjoying it. You love those moments, right? Like the organic growth, and everything seems to be falling together, and it's just so easy. And we've got great clients, and oh my God, it was great. And I was like on this perpetual high, just knocking out goals, and so I was ignoring some things that was happening with this team. And that ended up costing me a lot. It cost me a lot in money, like tens of thousands of dollars, a lot.
Ouch.
And in relationships. like just brokenhearted over the whole situation. So yeah, not listening, not paying attention for the red flags when I was really in really magic mode. I wasn't looking for the messes.
Right. So then how did you overcome that?
A lot of therapy. A lot of therapy. Because, and this is the other part too that I think is really interesting for messengers is like, and anyone who grows a business, right? Because you're always asking, it always comes back to you at the end of the day. Am I capable of this? Do I really want to do this? Is this really my purpose? Like, it's all about us. It's like a spiritual journey, right? And so, I mean, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you're building something, that creative process will make you go, what am I doing? And so I knew enough that it had happened for a reason to show me something. And it really opened up this whole lesson of how I didn't trust myself.
Yeah. Good for you for
I'd seen
learning.
all of the red flags. I'd seen all the red flags and I'd ignored them. Like I could identify all the red flags when I was talking through it. But yeah, I had just decided to ignore it, to trust people who were demonstrating that they were not trustworthy. And so I was left holding all of that. And so it was just, radical acceptance of, wow, that was mostly my fault. Like they misbehaved, absolutely, but that was mostly my fault because I could have stopped it, at the beginning.
Yeah. I've been there
if I trusted myself.
You got to hold up the mirror, point the finger this way. So what's the best advice you can give someone, Amanda?
I would say that it boils down to like if you're being called to a creative process, to let yourself be open to the idea that there's more to it than just the thing that you see. Like that there's something really awesome that can happen through the process, and maybe the process is more important than the end goal.
Right. And that's such a great message because I follow David Nagel, and he talks about the laws of the universe and that everything has a whole. Like there's not one half of anything in the world. And that is exactly what you're talking about. We walk through life and we see our perception of things, but really when you do this creative process, then you're able to come full circle and evaluate that whole, which is super incredible. And the things that'll come out of that, one, you're going to grow as a person and you might help other people. I mean, it's just tremendous.
Yeah. And I mean, I think sometimes we get so focused on like, why did this great thing happen and how can I repeat it? Sometimes we spend so much time trying to figure out how to repeat something that we miss the opportunity to enjoy the thing while it's here. It's like everything keeps taking us out of this moment where we can learn something or enjoy something, so just be in the process and don't let anyone tell you that you have to, hit this many figures or do it this particular way. Just do it the way that the process is telling you and it'll be magic.
Absolutely. I love it. So where can our listeners find you, Amanda?
TrueToIntention.com. So it's TRUETO intention singular.com. And and then there's some free stuff, that I wrote and launched a bestseller in less than 3 months in 2012 because I was forced to because of that client who passed. And so I tell the entire story of how I did that. And so there's a lot of free stuff and secrets in there that people can get a hold of to kind of get their process started.
Awesome. I love it. So check her out because she's phenomenal. And thank you so much for being on the show. You are awesome and gave some great valuable information. For all of you hiring leaders who are interested in finding the best way to find your next hire, go to careersandcocktails.com. And for all of you job seekers who want to purchase my book, I Hate Mondays, you can go to the same website to figure out where to get it. If you've liked this episode, please click the like, add a comment if you have time, and rate us on iTunes. We would be forever grateful. See you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.